Today is day 2 November 2023. As you could observe, we are having the new risk report reporting the same risks, especially if we could get that the in general mobilization of crime currently ongoing go by the same peers, since only God knows, but we consider 1920 cutting on present time, for instance, observing that we have enough elements to order prisons and projecting until 2028. We have enough elements to enact the prison, for instance, as transnational organized crime in Brazil, 2014 up to 2022 or 23, 6 years at least. If you are the same groups, probably you will have them on 2024 Europe and 2028 America, considering the distribution and redistribution from major to minor as FIFA, continental committees, and national committees of sports, for instance, as soccer, football, if you are in England. And in the same way, going in no other area as a summit of economy, major, global, with the same equal at continental summit and national summit, and of course that will be, for instance, at your neighborhood or the reunion of condominium. November 1st, we offered conclusive case divided by two drivers, because Brazil, the source of problems, is integrated on crimes proved on budget by silence associated with transnational organized crime, with misuse of power to cover everything by fake records made by specific hands on public departments, not having agents on companies, having skills and applying for criminal organization, stealing data and doing everything to supply the needs of criminal organizations, not only local, but trying to have at least these in Brazil competitive, the criminal scams. With criminal use of power, doing arbitrariness, face records, and keeping criminal activities at the transnational organized crime also traced on budget. Corruption plus legitimacy minus institutional risk plus higher. Refused ties with Brazil and peer by reasons quite clear. I'm doing an anti-crime activity that started with the systemic risk work as paper presented, was published, and then I try to live my life, but I can't live my life properly, especially if I am against things that are trying to change me into something I'm not part of it or do not support, like drugs and no other things. And it's quite fair, be who I am and do not change by the records made by someone else. Brazil and peers never cooperated. Number 2, we are and November 2 offered yet conclusive array as anti-mafia traced with it doesn't matter which is the area you are. If it is traced at the period -1, which is corruption, and following as deeper level the 00, which is criminal, that will be proven as confirmed +1, or it doesn't matter. But if you have the corruption and the criminal purpose, you have no excuse to do or to be in any area, in any circumstance, except inside a criminal organization. And it was traced as power misuse at institution and state, operating development of criminality by orders and specific hands. In general, traced since the very first day as the entry at the organization or institution or power by nepotism, corruption, to as being the background of illicit things and doing or supporting or keeping the arbitrariness complaint, even as violation of guarantees and basic rights, that it's not my basic rights or my guarantee, but the guarantees of and basic rights of we all, nationals and foreigners, individuals or groups in Brazil. When you violate the data in the way you do all the time, having multiplicity of routes at the mobile to do, the use or make things like you, a simulation of use as you to put you down, have your incrimination by false records, indeed it's a crime only by the part. And if you are offering more than 15 years as proved heavily, proven, as evidence heavily proven, and having all on current time, and you have no dignity to apply the consequence as institution or state power, as antitrust justice or international criminal court, I can have without no doubt that you are not accomplish your mission or your purpose. You are not representing the power or having the power, but only represent. If you have no legitimacy to act against the traced mobilization of crime as misuser of power, and by silence and everything, especially waiting things happen in a way you feel comfortable to do your decision and keep the problem, indeed you have no legitimacy. Legitimacy minus institutional risk plus corruption plus you are viewed as a corrupted trace or element traced at the use of power by silence, which is the silent intent as blind eye unveiling the purple 00 criminality as criminal association, even without the will explicitly made. By inference, it's allowed, for instance, in judicial system to have these words in the way I'm having. Finally, have codified the criminal use of power in the way we did right here, for instance, as an example of as against the antitrust just current representatives and the International Criminal Court current representatives considering the prosecution and the IOM. That's not me. I'm an independent researcher doing things at my private living with supports of my family and my own interests and who I am and keep who I am. Not like none of you. Different sides, single creditor, an individual for sure. By systematic violation of rights or guarantees with no excuse to be or exist. Institutional corruption unveiled by corruption negative 1, and digging, you will observe 00 as criminal purpose, which is now the institutional corruption, is the basic guideline for the institutional crime as purpose development of criminality covered by institutional procedures, workflow, and records. We'll show this situation here as we could observe, for the good look. As you could observe, the corruption unveiled will choke the control as internal thing you do, and will run the criminality as development of the crime as development of criminality. We can observe at the relation as discretionary debit or fixed debt, both must be according with the law. The discretionary debt do not give you freedom, but a bit more options as discretionary. But since you notice that you cross the lines and have no ways to accomplish, you need fake records. And then you do the confusion as current summit on Asia, Singapore, I think, that has problems in the near past, in the near past 6 months, with casino, financial records, and a lot of things. And they will be for sure having the interest in fake records that you claim as artificial intelligence. That is not a pot of gold, but for sure a big problem. If misused, will bring the responsibility against the company providers and others as CEO, allowing the misuse of a resource for corruption and criminal purpose. In the way we told, will use everything you have, resources, and model your company for criminal purpose, state for criminal purpose. But there are no exist to be or exist in any circumstance, as pandemic criminals can be punished anywhere. This kind of thing, in general, we observe that she has two pathways to run the things, as the corruption of the difference, in the way we prove it, or the gap, as the evasive behavior or not proper information, setting the cognitive gap as an empty space. And with fake records, the inference will be awful, like in Brazil, that the public records about crimes are not reliable anyway. The cognitive gap happens on government, corporations, and states. It will be an intention as evasive or set the logical gap, but indeed is unveiled also, and at the same time, by the behavior of this model here, and also this model here, considering the density of behavior as much as the curve, the Gauss curve, will be unveiled as a criminal intent that will change by activism or do things affecting your premise as legal accomplish. It implies the intent of how you use the law to break the Constitution and the guarantees. For instance, in Brazil, if you use an instrument as plea bargain or whatever to suppress rights and guarantees, you are unveiled your criminal intention, violating the very first premise as the law to, violate guarantees as constitutional conformance or regulation as conformity in 2 moments, but unveil also at the same time the deeper level of your criminal intent. Corruption in a very first moment, the second moment, the crimes and criminality as development by the institutional corruption as misuses of power, including, for instance, if we have the silence of the antitrust justice or the architect receiving the case with more than 15 years with evidence really proven and heavily proven and current, having all on Blazing Act, including who is receiving this, and expecting a single invented fact or even to have someone down or allow the constraint to put out of the show and do the murder as a show business activity in the same way. It's how this can go. We will observe that the credit misused indeed will unveil corporation and state misusing the credit with concurrent element as intersection on risk, affecting also and equally as observed in the 90s as the Operation Third Wind, which was an American company with this problem on inside as overpayment and having a list storage, broken and dividing the company and setting a new business as organization based on corruption, white collar crime, and list storage. This model, considering that the criminal activity go mostly by the same peers, and kind of doing variance and optimization of criminal scams previously observed without the follow-up and not considering the fake records, you do this straight. But Since you have this, you must review things since 1920. Do we have, on present time, any situation similar to this case at the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the 90s? For instance, different groups of interest trying to set a new nation by the resources at the past, considering the new thing formed, to form a new situation here as the way to achieve the power or the resource from areas previously diverted because we have limited resource, or setting this new space for as an empty space to be filled by current, fake records and cryptocurrency and all elements in a trial in USA, for instance, as cryptocurrency and Ponzi scam involving cryptocurrency. Question number 1. How do you consider that the fake record and artificial intelligence under cognitive bias, that is a solution for criminality, will be punished or under a more specific accusation or something like this? This is just a presentation, a complaint. Is this misuse of artificial intelligence, like all other resources misused, part of the organized crime or criminal scams, considering that your company or the provider has a top tier? If unveiled as corruption with criminal purpose, has no excuse, it can be punished anywhere. Can we transfer the two both, for instance, as question and hearing about the interest as misuse of credit to support new state or ambition as a state to allow the transference of resource, just like observe a detonation and the campaign, for instance, in USA? Question number 1. Question number 2. Can we transfer the artificial intelligence and all things that you are misusing as institutional power back in criminal activity, considering the state criminality, also to the cases in USA? For instance, the current case on cryptocurrency, and the other case that I forget now. And we will finish here because we have 17 minutes.